Dr. Folio is a senior research physician and the lead computed tomography radiologist at NIH Clinical Center. He will provide an overview of our radiology preprocessing (RP) integrated workflow curriculum that includes image acquisition such as computed tomography or CT and PACS, otherwise known as Picture Archiving and Communication Systems. PACS is used to view medical images and includes highly advanced processing tools that produce multiplanar reformation, 3D imaging, and lesion management applications.
And now we'll walk into the CT consult area.
So now we're in the CT consult or consult reading area where we've got our workstation, very powerful. They don't all have to be this powerful, but this is fairly typical where now we're comparing the two exams. So the best way to do that is to register them. So with a couple buttons, then I can just get them lined up. And usually they're a little bit even, but this is going to work for us. It's looking at the anatomy and matching up similar areas, the heart, the vessels. Now, I'd like to show this adenopathy here, that they've given him a therapy where the adenopathy is much smaller. So this is in the axilla area where you can palpate. And so then a radiology preprocessor will go in and say, okay, Dr. Folio wants this measured. And there is some automation to be able to do this, but I'll show you here what's going to happen. So we use 2 diameter measurements. Let me just zoom up on that for you. So 2 diameter, it doesn't have to be perfect. We just try to get to the edges. We do try to be as careful as possible. And radiologists would prefer not to spend too much time with this. So I'm going to break registration, meaning the machine is a little bit off the recognition of the anatomy. So now I'm going to bring this to the adenopathy that was there before. So you can see the proximity. It was much larger in the past. It's usually measured, but let's say it wasn't, then the radiology preprocessor or the machine in the near future, AI, will then go in and measure these two. And usually it would detect that the measurement has been made in this same area, but it's so much smaller, the automatic recognition doesn't believe that that's the same lesion. So now I've done that manually, where then in the bookmark table, this is now computing all this and relating it over time. And if I were to change this to a target lesion here, where it's unspecified at the moment, but let's say I make it a target. We can go in here and say target. Then it follows up over time. So then when we refresh this, now it's seen this dramatic decrease. And so the more exams we put on here, the more we would see that. So we'll come back to that later. That's just what's going on in the background, which most radiologists don't concern themselves with so much the numerical component of it, rather are just describing in the dictaphone the big picture. The adenopathy has been getting smaller. In this case, the therapy apparently is working as they had planned. So let's go through. You can see more adenopathy here, also smaller. Here in the hilar area, this nodule is a little bit smaller here. But let's go to something a little bit more obvious, such as the spleen, where it was larger in the past. So this is splenomegaly. There's a small lesion up here. You can actually adjust the windows too to make these stand out a little bit more. So not too much adenopathy here in the iliacs and some of the other anatomy that we went over, but you can see adenopathy here, and you can see how this was bigger in the inguinal region. So let's take this one. That looks like the largest area. Wasn't measured in the past, so I used the 2 diameter tool. And you'll note too that this short axis is perpendicular to that long axis. So I can move it anywhere along it, but it's always perpendicular. So then I'll do the same thing here, break the registration, find the largest component of that adenopathy, that lymph node, and do the similar type of measurement. And again, the machine would usually recognize it. There it did. So it automatically plotted these two with this F13. So now going to the chart, looking at 2 of these lesions, oh, and I have to make it a target lesion, just like I did before. And again, this is done in the background. So now both of these lesions, this is the total, and this is both of these lesions now getting smaller.